You want to see two Americas in one city? Here's what happens when being homeless is a crime, and the inverse of being white on a collegiate campus. People are mauled. Activists and journalists are arrested by LAPD. However, if you're white and in Westwood celebrating your team making the Final Four, you can get away with anything. Starting fires, violating the county's COVID protocols, doesn't matter. So these are the polar opposites just a few miles from each other in the same quote unquote liberal city in America, Los Angeles, California. The media covered when this man, council member Mitch O'Farrell, called in LAPD to physically move displaced American citizens and refugees into prison-like housing. When the town of Echo Park heard what O'Farrell was up to, they came out in droves, but were still mauled by LAPD, led by Chief Michael Moore, who once said this of the George Floyd protests over the summer.
We didn't have protests last night. We had criminal acts. We didn't have people mourning the death of this man, George Floyd. We had people capitalizing.
Some bullshit. I mean, you can put people with badges on, and like, I feel like as a society, we just looked at it and was like, all right, cool, these are good people. It's the same people you graduated high school with. These are the same people you lived with. The same people that had to get a job, regardless of any job. Like, you don't treat police officers at a higher level and say, oh, you know, we try to do that and say, oh, well, they have people's lives in their hands. So do doctors, so do nurse, so do dentists at times. Like, do you give them a distinguished pass no matter what? No. You say, oh, well, they know the law. Do you? I would argue that most people know the law better than most officers nowadays. So, like, when we easily dismiss problems and make it seem like someone doesn't have merit, that's where we have issues. And when we act like those issues aren't relevant, that's when the problems get bigger. So, big ups to my guy pointing this out.
Is on their hands as much as it is those officers.
Yeah, that guy. Behind him is LA Mayor Eric Garcetti, who has enabled Moore and the police through a budget of over $3 billion, according to Black Lives Matter Los Angeles. Councilman Joe Buscaino, who has been embroiled in the Harbor Gateway scandal where he took donations to approve an apartment complex, and even the connection to businessman Andrew Wang per Spectrum News in Los Angeles, well, he had nothing to say about the UCLA students, but had a ton to say about, you guessed it, Echo Park Lake. Taking advantage of the homeless, count him in. A former officer, he blamed activists, policing in America.
So before we go any farther, I already know what someone's going to jump in here and wind up saying. Someone's probably going to say something about, oh, BLM ain't good either. They took money from their own people, blah, blah, blah. Really, I don't give a shit. That's not the point. BLM doesn't work for the government. They don't work for the people. The police do. BLM can't throw you in jail for life. The police can. This would be the same characterization as if we were to go along and say, all right, well, this guy stole a bag of chips. He should spend the rest of his life in jail. That guy stole someone's life savings out of a bank. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same thing. It's not. Is it the same crime? Yes, they both stole. Is the gravity different? Exponentially. So, like, let's stop blowing things out of proportion. Let's just call a spade, and we kind of get more off to where we want to get to. All right, let me continue.
Holding those accountable, instead laying blame on the helpless. Yeah, that's about right. O'Farrell, a corrupt coward who cozies up to Scientologists and the elite in the city, claimed the homeless would receive housing.
Great when they put the fuel dumps on these helicopters. I would have dumped it on Glendale Boulevard a long time ago. I'll bring the match.
These are the tax dollars at work.
And again, we sit here and act like we don't understand this. You know, it's quick to dismiss people to say they don't have their own problems. This is our thought process up top, and then we say, "Oh, but these guys do a job. Why would a police officer lie?" All right. Well, if we want to hold the same rules and regulations, I would love to have these same stringent rules when I've got people's lives at risk. If that's the case, then we should have doctors out there that should just be like, hey man, even though these surgeries that are supposed to be very easy with modern technology, we just keep botching them because we are coming in drunk or high. It's okay. It happens every once in a while. You get a bad apple, right? No, but that's the degree you deal with when you have a guy with a gun that can put a bullet through someone else and kill them, take their lives, get a suspension, come back to work, violate a few more people, ruffle up the feathers. So like you gotta think about these things. People don't though, because two things. One, people don't care. Doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times people want to make decisions for the people that are actually there. So like you'll have the masses who aren't around each other, let's just say, and I'm just putting it out there, you've got so many people that don't come in contact with the city people because they're not in the cities. There's a lot of areas that aren't city, right? But they'll look at the news and say, "Oh shit, bunch of bad people in there. We need to do this because that's what the news is telling them." Is that the real people that are there? No. Have they really met most of them people? I had an interaction one time. Cool. So if you had an interaction one time with a doctor and you felt as though he was rude to you, you're not going to let that same guy operate on you, but he's the only doctor in the entire fucking country that can help you survive. Are you just for your decision? Sure, you're allowed to do whatever you want. Are you probably going to survive now? Probably not. Is it your fault? Probably, because you're judging a man on how his fucking actions towards meeting you were compared to how well he is a surgeon. Like, so this is what I mean. This is what we do. Anyway, let me get him back to what he's trying to say.
Officers are again being criticized for their use of weapons last week, this time as they responded to protests over the removal of the homeless encampment around Echo Park Lake. Chief Moore claimed officers were blinded by strobe lights, so they had to use force. Au contraire, amigo. On video, officers were captured using weapons in ways that appeared to violate the department's policies, which bar officers from shooting people who don't represent a physical threat and from shooting into crowds, shooting people at close range, and shooting people merely for ignoring verbal commands. The fact remains, if you are white on a college campus, you can do as you please. But if you silently protest on the sidelines or if you march for human rights, well, apparently that's just too much of an ask in this country.
There's one part where people say, "Oh, well, you can't blame somebody for what they don't know," right? And then like you'll show it to them, and then they'll disregard it because they don't want to give it clarity, or it's being spun this way or whatever. At the end of the day, it doesn't fucking matter. Like I look at anything that I see and I say, all right, if I put myself in that situation, would I like the way I'm being treated? Well, what did he do to make it? It's always a move a goalpost situation, what did he do to be like that? Who the fuck knows? But why do we gotta treat everybody as if they're, the problem? Very easy from the outside coming in that way. But the funny part is that you're stupid because you're nothing but a buck. So it's like, your job is if you lock people up. Like if you have a quota, that's a bad thing as a police officer. Why do you have to make a quota? You ever think about that? The fuck does that mean? Making a quota. You better make sure you write up this many people, give him some tickets so he have a job here. Oh. So if everybody's doing the right thing, we better find a way to fuck people over so that, they see that we have an existence and a need here. It's really what the fuck you're saying. So, yeah, it's great. Good times. Good times. So glad we took this time out to talk about some bullshit that you all knew was a problem and disregard. Till next time, I hope I pissed somebody off.